Tonight, on First at 9 this Wednesday, the 12th of February 2025. Global Unity. President Anura Dissanayake calls for unified global action to address pressing challenges. Advocates for reforms in international financial laws and the establishment of robust cybersecurity regulations. The way forward. Experts stress that expanding international trade is key to Sri Lanka's economic growth. Urge the elimination of uncompetitive industries to drive stronger financial gains. Shattered hopes. Deputy Minister of Industry says there will be no tax reductions in the upcoming budget, but hints at future concessions for financial and tech investments. Connect or disconnect. More power cuts may be imminent. Authorities to decide on further outages tomorrow as CEB scrambles to bring Norachole back online.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama, Kiren Perata. Obe Vishwasi Dinu Sensorain, then Lagamati Pharmacy in Labagata Hacker.
Kanta Parisankaragato? Api Parisan.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasave, Vesat Matui Gadarat Disney.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Taridu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. In your top story tonight, President Anura Dissanayake addressing the World Government Summit today in the United Arab Emirates emphasized the need for collective global action and a united front to tackle global challenges. He also stressed the importance of systematically implementing agreements and laws while ensuring structured support for low-income and vulnerable communities, pointing out that the current international financial structure is inadequately prepared to handle a widespread sovereign debt crisis. President Dissanayake underscored the need for financial reforms that are adaptable to the modern world. Furthermore, he emphasized the growing importance of strengthening global cybersecurity measures. President Anura Dissanayake, who is currently on a state visit to the United Arab Emirates, addressed the main session of the World Government Summit this evening.
Excellency Anura Kumara Dissanayake, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka.
The people of my nation have sympathy for the challenges faced by other nations. They respect different cultures but possess the intelligence to adapt to changes when necessary. I believe that this summit, focused on developing strategies and plans for the future of the human race, will be highly beneficial. The issues we face as a nation, a region and a global community are vast and complex. Those who disregard these challenges continue their selfish pursuits, but such pursuits inevitably end when national issues escalate into global crisis. Therefore, I would like to emphasize the necessity of collective action in addressing these global challenges. The structure of state institutions and the accountability of public service will critically impact the future of our world. Implementing agreements and laws effectively, providing essential facilities for low-income and vulnerable communities, and ensuring that activists and the media can hold public officials accountable are crucial steps in this effort. Currently, nearly 60% of low-income countries are either experiencing a debt crisis or are at a high risk of facing one. These nations are deeply concerned about their future and the global economy. Strict global financial regulations are increasing their debt repayments, leading to potential sovereign debt crisis. It is essential to amend global financial regulations to align with the modern needs of the world. The digital revolution has already transformed the way people live and communicate. However, we must recognize that this technological advancement also introduces new challenges for citizens and governments worldwide. There are international laws in place to safeguard civilians during armed conflicts. Shouldn't we also establish similar laws to address cyber warfare? The world must come together to implement strong cybersecurity regulations. Whether you represent the Middle East, Africa, Asia, Europe or the Western nations, we all face common challenges and our collective conscience urges us to unite in building a better world. I urge all of you gathered at this historic summit. Let us come together to create a beautiful life and a beautiful world for all.
මේ ඓතිහාසික සමුළුවේදී මා ඔබට ආයාචනා කරනවා. අපි එකට එකතු වී ලස්සන ජීවිතයක් සහ ලස්සන ලෝකයක් නිර්මාණය කරමු.
Chartered accountant Sujiva Mudalige emphasises that Sri Lanka must utilise the 3-year moratorium on principal debt repayments as an opportunity to implement much-needed economic reforms. Joining our current affairs programme at Hyde Park within the Amuwatta, Mudalige stated that international trade is the way forward if Sri Lanka is to grow its economy. Meanwhile, economist Talal Rafi underscored that identifying and moving away from uncompetitive industries is just as important as promoting competitive ones for Sri Lanka to improve its export portfolio.
What tough reforms do you think we should bring in, especially in line with the IMF, to address this crisis and to ensure that Sri Lanka will be resilient?
When it comes to economic reforms, one of the questions I always get asked is what sectors should we focus on? But the question should be which sectors should we be allowed to shut down? This is the example of Japan in the 1950s. One of the things they did was focused on finding which industries were not competitive. And the best way to do that is an open economy. Chile and Sri Lanka opened the economies at the same time. Today it is an advanced economy. Sri Lanka has gone bankrupt. They have one of the highest number of FTAs in the world. What they did, unlike many other countries, was that they reduced unilaterally their tariff rates, a flat out 6%. That resulted in some of their industries going down. But it also saw some industries flourish. Its exports rose. These are entrepreneurs. If their industry gets into trouble, they're going to innovate or they're going to move to a new sector. But many people point out about South Korea and Taiwan, how they had import substitution models. They had infant import substitution, where industries were allowed to grow, and after that they liberalized trade. The father of import substitution model himself admitted that it doesn't work. 80% of our imports are intermediate and capital goods. So the minute you put tariffs, your manufacturing sector gets into issues.
Are we really doing enough to strike deals that are actually beneficial for the country?
If we are competing for exports with countries such as Bangladesh or Vietnam, you can't be very competitive when Vietnam and other countries have free trade agreements with the developed world. The way it is looked at is how will our import side be affected. But what has to be looked at is how we can improve our exports. 2028 is our deadline. It's not the time to focus on non-tradable sectors. These are not dollar earning things. The only way to earn dollars would be exporting. If there is a situation where we cannot repay the second time and default, a second IMF bailout is going to be much more painful. If you take Greece, the first time was a bit lenient. Second time was when pensions were cut, state sector employees' salaries were cut. We have a 3-year window. If we make the correct reforms and focus more on the export side, about 70% of global trade is supplying value chains of multinational companies. You can't do that in an environment where you can't import and export really. Vietnam over 100% of GDP of exports, but their imports is also over 100% of GDP.
It's all about trade. We have to trade, trade and trade. Should governments focus on reviving a closed down factory somewhere, or should we look at something where we could plug into the global supply chains? To do trade, you need 2 things. We need to have an environment that we are open for trade, we are open for business. Second one, we need free trade agreements and double tax agreements. Every president talks about Singapore. If you are to become Singapore, at our current growth rate, it will take you 104 years. So don't ever talk about the Singapore story because it's well beyond us. So if you are to do this, we have to grow. Within these 3 years, do the tough reform that is required, whether it's SOE reform, whether it's reforms in health sector, education sector, land reforms, whether it's on immigration, whether it's on FDI, whether it's at the airport, whether it's reforms on how we issue visas. That's why we have a 3-year window. It's a super time. As I said, it's a honeymoon period.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Don't waste time. Start your degree with pending A-level results this February with our partner universities. Call ACBT on 0117 699 499.
Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Buddhika Hewawasam, says that government must focus on enhancing air connectivity to the nation in order to achieve its long-term tourism targets by 2030. He also urges government to provide significant concessions on import duties for vehicles used in the tourism sector through the upcoming budget, highlighting that the restriction on vehicle imports negatively impacted the overall quality of Sri Lanka's tourism sector.
Tourism targets set for this year is 3 million tourists and a $4 billion revenue. So this target is going to be extended for next 5 years of time. That is by 2030, we are looking for a $10 billion revenue and doubled our particular tourism numbers, at least like 8 million to 10 million tourists. This is actually a possible target, but a challenging one, considering the particular factors that we need to be aligned with the budget as well as the government's planning as well as government's strategic direction. One is the air connectivity to the country, real good air connectivity onto some destinations, but overall we need to improve national air connectivity to the country. And on the other side, we need a lot of investment for tourism infrastructure development as well as tourism hotels, the accommodation sector and various other kind of entertainment amenities and things of that sort. So we expect budgetary concessions as well as government support for such kind of investment continuous to develop this particular sector. And we actually acquired a lot of government lands and try to make them more investment friendly. We need more properties, more exclusive tourism accommodation as well as tourism attractions to attract tourists to Sri Lanka. Last 3 years, vehicle importation to Sri Lanka was been restricted, and that actually negatively affected tourism when it comes to our product and product's quality. So in order to improve that, actually one of the budget proposals we made is to be providing concessions. Actually we are not being asking for a duty free or any other kind of a thing, but at least a reasonable concession on duty which is in par with last year or year before, in order for us to import vehicles necessary for tourism industry. And also the tourism sector was last few years of time had a lot of financial difficulties. Some of the hotels as well as the properties are debt-ridden. So the budget, I think, positively consider that aspect.
Meanwhile, Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development Chaturanga Besingha says a tax reduction cannot be expected from the upcoming budget as government is constrained by the terms of Sri Lanka's agreement with the International Monetary Fund. However, he mentioned that government plans to provide increased support for the vehicle assembly industry and aims to promote Sri Lanka as a global destination for automotive component manufacturing.
Government's policy is to reduce production costs for industries in the future. While we may experience a gradual reduction in indirect taxes over time, a tax reduction cannot be expected this year. According to the IMF, we must maintain a tax to GDP ratio of 15.1%. Once we recover and our revenue generation becomes more efficient, we will be able to pass those benefits on to industries. Additionally, government plans to provide tax concessions for investments in the banking sector and for technological investments in industries. These measures will be included in the budget schedule to be presented on the 17th. Furthermore, we aim to facilitate and support the release of land necessary for industrial development through the budget. A new tariff policy will also be introduced to reduce or eliminate taxes on raw materials. Another pressing issue is the importation of goods without proper taxation. To address this, we will implement an anti-dumping policy.
Meanwhile, Microcars Limited yesterday unveiled its new Hi-Her bus models. The launch event took place at Microcars head office in Kalaniya with the participation of Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development Chaturanga Besingha, Deputy Minister of Transport and Highways Dr. Prasanna Kumara, Deputy Minister of Science and Technology Professor Krishanta Besena and other dignitaries.
Sri Lanka is moving ahead. The tourism industry is booming after many years, and one of the critical success factors for tourism is transportation. And we lack high quality transportation facilities for tourism for the last few years. We hope one day our public transportation, not later but soon, will also allow our public to use high quality transportation mechanisms in Sri Lanka. And the other piece is our tourism investors or tourism industry is willing to invest in the future, looking at the potential of the country and the stability that we have derived. Sri Lankan vehicle assembly industry is booming, and as Sri Lankan, there is option for us to look at the value-added assembly industry as well. And going forward, this industry will be supported heavily, mostly as an assembly industry, but also as a component manufacturing destination.
The Ceylon Electricity Board says it will announce tomorrow whether or not further power cuts will be implemented in the coming days until the Norachole power plant, which went offline following the island-wide power outage, is reconnected to the system. No power cuts were implemented today as the CEB was able to manage the decreased daily power demand, with today being a Poya holiday. Last Sunday, the entire island experienced a power outage due to an emergency at the Panadura grid substation, resulting in all 3 generators at the Norachole thermal power plant going offline due to the imbalance in the power system. As a result, the Ceylon Electricity Board took steps to implement island-wide 1.5-hour power cuts during the past 2 days due to the inability to manage the demand. However, the CEB announced that it will not implement a power cut today due to the ability to manage the reduced demand for power, with today being a Poya holiday. Meanwhile, the state power supplier expects to expedite the restoration of the Norachole power plant back to functionality. The CEB is set to announce tomorrow whether further power cuts will be implemented from tomorrow onwards until the Norachole power plant is brought back online. Meanwhile, politicians expressed views on the power crisis.
The Minister of Energy revealed that the island-wide blackout was caused by a monkey that entered into the power station. A responsible minister would never make such a comment without proper evidence.
How
is it possible that a single monkey could induce a nationwide blackout? During the JVP insurrection, island-wide power outages did not occur when a single transformer was attacked. It is possible that power in the relevant area might be interrupted. In that case, how is it possible that this power outage was caused by a monkey? The incumbent government assumed the presidency by criticizing the shortcomings of previous administrations. They saw the mistakes of the previous regimes. The public believed that this government would provide solutions to the existing concerns. That is why they voted for these people. However, now they cannot waste time criticizing the actions of the previous administration.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa received huge backlash when constructing the Norachole power plant. However, a single breakdown at the Norachole power plant led to an island-wide blackout. This clearly reflects that although people criticize Mahinda Rajapaksa and his development projects, the country cannot function for even a day without those development initiatives.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft.
ඩයිබටිසෝල් සීනිවලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire කිසිගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසිගින්නක් නෑ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
Leader of the Sarva Jana Balaya Alliance, MP Dilip Jayavira, raises concern as to whether the incumbent government is acting in Sri Lanka's best interests or those of other nations. Speaking to the public in Matale, Jayavira alluded to the possibility of Western powers having sway over the government's recent policies. A program was organised by the Sarva Jana Balaya in Matale yesterday under the patronage of party leader MP Dilip Jayavira to select divisional representatives of the alliance.
Former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa formed a government but could not properly govern the country. The same thing has happened to the incumbent president. Although he obtained a majority of votes to assume the president's office, he has been unable to accomplish anything. He frequently blames other parties to hide his own mistakes. The country does not require such a leader.
The houses of our ministers were set ablaze during the struggle. Who set them on fire? Did we do this to ourselves? They are now paying compensation for the properties that were set on fire. And now they are trying to portray us as having taken a significant amount of money. These are the characteristics of a governance based on propaganda following Goebbels' theory.
Never in Sri Lankan political history has there been a regime which adheres to new liberal economic policies to this extent. On the other hand, a massive deception is being carried out which the general public is not aware of. NPP supporters think that Anura Dissanayake is the president of this country. However, that is not the case. Anura Dissanayake assumed the president's office by voicing the concerns of the country's impoverished community. However, none of his decisions so far address the concerns of these people. What is this silent methodology being followed by the government? Are Western powers behind it? Has our sovereignty been violated? Are the leaders of this country acting in the best interest of our country or in support of another nation?
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa requested that a parliamentary select committee be appointed to probe into the funds disbursed by USAID in Sri Lanka. This development came after the head of the newly formed United States Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, claimed that USAID had funded efforts to influence elections in several countries, including Sri Lanka. Reports surfaced recently claiming that the US Agency for International Development had granted $260 million to organizations affiliated with Hungarian-American billionaire George Soros to spread chaos, change governments and personal gain in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Ukraine, Syria, Iran, Pakistan, India, the UK and the US. Against this backdrop, the head of the newly formed US Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, yesterday claimed that USAID had funded efforts to influence elections in several countries.
I think that there are some worthy things, but overall, if you say what was the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good. And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
Meanwhile, parliamentarian of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Namal Rajapaksa forwarded a letter to the Speaker of Parliament requesting that a parliamentary select committee be appointed to probe into the funds disbursed by USAID in Sri Lanka. The SLPP MP raised concerns over the USAID grants, claiming that it is doubtful that USAID spent $7.9 million on a trivial matter such as educating journalists on avoiding binary gendered language. Accordingly, Rajapaksa requested an investigation into whether USAID funds had been used to sow turmoil in Sri Lanka. Two individuals who were allegedly assaulted by Jaffna District Parliamentarian Dr. Ramanathan Archana have been hospitalized. One of the two persons who sustained head injuries after yesterday's altercation has been referred for surgery at the Jaffna Teaching Hospital. According to police, the incident took place at a restaurant in Jaffna yesterday following a heated argument between the two parties. Meanwhile, CCTV footage of the relevant incident is being circulated on social media platforms. Police revealed that MP Archana has also been hospitalized, claiming that he too was assaulted during the incident. "139 officers in charge of the Sri Lanka Police are to be transferred with effect on the 13th and 18th of this month, marking the largest number of simultaneous transfers in the department's history. The officers to be transferred include 105 Chief Inspectors of Police and 34 Inspectors of Police. 139 officers in charge of police are to be transferred, with the transfers scheduled to be effective on the 13th and 18th of February, marking the highest number of simultaneous transfers in the history of Sri Lanka Police. These transfers include 50 new appointments, 36 transfers between officers in charge and 53 reassignments to general duties. The transfers have been made by Acting Inspector General of Police Priyantha Veerasurya with approval of the National Police Commission. Deputy Minister of Public Security and Parliamentary Affairs Sunil Watagala during the Maharagama Divisional Coordination Committee meeting commented on the transfers.
දැන් තමුන්නාන්සේ මහරගම අපරාධකරුවන්ගේ අඳුනගත්තු ලයිස්තුවක් තියෙනවා.
ලයිස්තුවක් තියෙනවා සර්.
කී දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවද?
12 දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා සර්.
12යි. ඒ කියන්නේ මහරගම අපරාධකරුවන් 12ක්
ඒ
ඉන්නවා.
කියන්නේ ද්‍රව ජාවාරම් කරනවා කියලා අඳුනගත්තා.
එතකොට ඒ 12 සම්බන්ධයෙන් තමුන්නාන්සේ කටයුතු කරගෙන යනවද?
එහෙමයි සර්.
දැන් ඒ 12න් තමුන්ගේ බුද්ධි තොරතුරු කොහොමද කටයුතු කළේ?
සර් මෙහෙමයි මේ මහරගම ඉඳලා මේක බොහෝ වෙලාවට බඩෝවිට ප්‍රදේශයෙන් සහ ග්‍රෑන්ඩ් පාස් ප්‍රදේශයෙන් තමයි මේගොල්ලෝ මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය අරගෙන එන්නේ. මෙහි
The
police doesn't have to wait for orders from the government. Take the necessary actions based on intelligence information. We will support the police. We will provide the infrastructure. That's all we can do. We have strengthened the police to be independent without interference from politicians. The police should take the necessary measures. The Ministry of Public Security and Parliamentary Affairs received a number of complaints about a police constable that was transferred from the Maharagama police. When asked about the sudden transfer, the Inspector General of Police said that intelligence services reported that the constable had a connection to an individual who was associated with drug trafficking. We received several complaints at our ministry asking why that constable was transferred. Every day, a number of people would come and inform us that the constable who was transferred apprehended drug traffickers in the area. But intelligence services reported that he was connected to trafficking. We will not let go of this easily. I called the Inspector General of Police yesterday and told him that there is a mafia even among the police. The police have transferred the righteous constable using a false intelligence report. The Maharagama police haven't even taken any action to control trafficking, and you have transferred the officer who actually caught the drug traffickers to Kilinochchi. Let's be careful from now onwards. I'm not blaming the police. The relaunch of the ferry service from Nagapatnam in Tamil Nadu, India to Kankasanturai is expected to take place on the 16th of February, contingent on weather conditions improving. India-based Hindustan Times reported that the relaunch, initially scheduled for tomorrow, has been postponed at the last minute due to continuing rough seas. According to the report, online tickets for the route from Nagapatnam to Kankasanture will be available one day before the launch. As per the current plan, the ferry service will operate 6 days a week, excluding Tuesdays. A one-way ticket to Jaffna will cost 4,500 Indian rupees. Any Indian citizen with a valid passport and a return ticket can travel to Sri Lanka using the ferry, as visas are available on arrival. The vessel is scheduled to depart from Nagapatnam port at 7 a.m. with the return journey starting at 2 p.m. Each journey is expected to take approximately 3 hours. Reports indicate that the ferry service from Nagapatnam to Kankasanture is seen as a part of India's strategic initiative to strengthen its presence in Sri Lankan waters. Additionally, the service aims to enhance monitoring efforts against smuggling and infiltration activities in international waters. Welcome back. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka issued a warning regarding a rise in fraudulent advertisements falsely claiming to offer employment opportunities at the CBSL. The central bank warned that such deceptive advertisements, often shared on social media and unauthorized platforms, misuse the CBSL's official logo to mislead job seekers. The CBSL further clarified that it does not post job vacancies on third-party social media pages. All official recruitment announcements are exclusively available on the CBSL website under the Careers section and through its verified social media channels. The central bank urges the public to remain vigilant against such scams and to verify any job-related information directly through official CBSL platforms. Sri Lanka's China-backed Hambantota port and Sinopec have announced the addition of high-sulfur fuel oil to their range of ship fuels. In a statement, the port said that HSF4 is stored in 2 tanks with a combined capacity of 6,000 cubic meters and can be transferred at a rate of 400 metric tons per hour. The facility is equipped with advanced monitoring and remote control systems, ensuring precise and safe operations. According to the port, this addition will provide significant convenience to ship owners with vessels using scrubbers, allowing them to opt for HSF4 as a cost-effective solution while complying with IMO 2020 sulfur cap regulations. Meanwhile, Sinopec Lanka Private Limited stated that the absence of shore-based HSF4 storage at Sri Lanka's ports has previously limited its availability to small quantities, restricting the shipping industry's ability to secure reliable fuel supplies and impacting maritime operations and efficiency. Alice Lee, Deputy General Manager of Sinopec Fuel Oil Lanka, stated, by leveraging the storage capabilities in Hambantota, they can ensure that vessels calling at Sri Lankan ports have access to consistent and high-quality HSF4 supplies. And that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining and have a good night.